Hello and welcome to the Dental Chair. I'm your host, Marguerite Morgan. I am the founder and director of Irish Dental Jobs. With almost 25 years of recruitment experience in the legal and dental arena, I tend to do things very differently, and I wanted to showcase how we actually establish and maintain relationships and form connections in order to match the right people to dental practices nationwide. Over the course of the next 8 episodes, we will touch on one or two key insights from our recently launched salary guide and dental insights and trends. To discuss these with me, to my right is my right-hand woman, Margaret Kierans. Margaret has been working with me for the last 6 years. She is the marketing manager for Irish Dental Jobs, and she is the master behind the research for our dental insights and trends. So, Margaret, what interesting key insight have you got for us today?
Well, today I'm going to be talking about the public and private sector salaries. And we basically did a comparative analysis on salaries, and we found that dental nurses with approximately 8 years experience in the public sector, we were pretty much on par with them. But anything over 8 years, we found that dental nurses were getting €30 per hour. Whereas for us, the max we could secure for a dental nurse of that experience was 23 per hour. And that's been like that maybe about 2 years now.
Yeah, that's right. Like from my experience, the max salary we've been able to place a dental nurse at, whether they've 8 years experience or 28 years experience, is €23 per hour. And we're competing with the public sector all of the time. Like we're losing many nurses to the public sector, and the number one reason would be because of a yearly pay increase. The benefits are very important, but transparency as well. So it's always to do with the salaries, but it's this transparency that seems to be very important to them, and I believe that's what's lacking in the private sector. There's little or no transparency when it comes to salaries.
Yeah, definitely. So like, as you said, in the private sector, they have a salary scale, which is incremental each year, and then it's capped at the end of the scale. But they also have public pay agreements, which is simply just to remain in line with inflation. But there's nothing for the private sector to say, somebody with X amount of experience should be receiving this, or somebody with Y amount of experience should be receiving this. But it's something I've actually heard you talking about a lot in the office, that, you'd love to be that central domain for the private sector, and to ensure that salaries are standardised in some way.
Yeah, my vision is to be the go-to or one central domain for salaries in the private sector. Like, we are the only organisation in the country who has 15 years knowledge of the dental profession and of salaries nationwide. And in addition to having our recruitment software where we can store the information, it's from talking to dental professionals all day, every day, that helps us gather this information as well. It's such a small community. When I was working in legal recruitment back in 2009, there were just over 1,000 law firms in Dublin versus just over 1,000 dental practices in the country. And there are so few dental professionals that qualify on a yearly basis, and particularly with dental nurses. If you have a dental nurse, qualified, non-qualified, 3 to 4 years, good solid experience, I believe that if there was one central go-to place as a guide, that can only help all parties involved and, kind of solve a problem. And it is a guide, but, it's a guide that the figures are put out there are, they're fact. We're not pulling them out of the sky. So, yeah, that would be my vision, Margaret.
Yeah, no, it definitely, like, it would be a great resource for practice owners to just have that there to look at, to say this is what this person should be on or this person shouldn't be on. And it will be, hopefully, will be a great resource to many. So just one more point on inflation before we finish up. If you take a look at our stats from our 2020 salary guide and compare them to our 2024 salary guide, there was an historic spike in inflation. And it's something that practice owners really should take a look at. And I'm not saying you should give your staff an increase every time inflation goes up by 1%, 2% or whatever. What I'm saying is just be aware of it and just be conscious of inflation, because if you are somebody that hasn't seen a pay increase in over 4 years, inflation has increased by 18.5%. So realistically, somebody who hasn't seen an increase in 4 years, their salary should have gone up by 18.5%. And if it hasn't, then, their buying power has completely diminished because inflation has completely outpaced their salaries.
Wow.
And on that note, if you do want to order our salary guide, you can do so at irishdentaljobs.ie/salary guide.
In this episode, we're going to dive into the benefits of temping and creating that work and life balance that we're all striving to achieve. So joining me today, I have two guests. Actually, boys, can we have a drum roll there, please? Can we have a VIP in the building? Not only have a superstar who hails from a strong family history in dental, she is also our wonderful, amazing head dental nurse, Clare Lynch. Oh, sorry, Brianna. I know. And our second guest is Brianna, all the way from Australia. Claire.
Thanks for that, Marguerite.
Did you enjoy that?
I did.
Well, it's true, So, Claire, just to start with you, we know each other. It's been a long journey, and it's hard to believe that when we met, our kids were babies. They were babies. No, not babies anymore. And so you might. I know how you came to me and everything like that, but you might share your story. Like I said, you hail from a strong family background, and if you go back to the beginning and why you started temping in the first place.
I come from a dental family background. My father was a dentist, my sister is a dentist, and growing up, the practice was a big part of our family life. The three of us at one stage worked in the family practice together. So sometimes that was interesting. Yeah. Over the years, things changed. My sister Catherine, she married and moved further afield. But when my dad first qualified, he went to London. As all dentists seem to do now, when they qualify, they'll travel abroad to get experience. And that's what he did. And that was in the mid-50s. Right. that took place, and he came back and he set up a practice in Dublin 12. He recognised very early on and promoted, maintaining good dental health and the importance of it. He recognised that going forward, because people were more conscious of their dental health, that they would be keeping their dentition as such. Whereas before, if you had a problem with a tooth, you went to the dentist and it was taken out. Right. Whereas now people were maintaining their teeth. Yeah. So, but that in itself brought other issues to light. People maintaining their teeth, not everybody had enough room for them. So therefore, he saw in the 50s that there was a need to learn and to study further in dentistry, and went and studied for a year in Cardiff Dental Hospital orthodontic treatment.
Right.
So all of us, lock, stock and barrel, 6 children, mum and dad, all of us went to live in Cardiff for a year while he studied.
Right.
Then going forward, my sister went and did dentistry, and she actually followed in his footsteps, and she studied orthodontics as well. So, as I said, the three of us at one stage were in the practice, but everybody moved in different directions and things changed. And my father passed away very suddenly, so we were left with a very vibrant, busy practice. And we got help from a couple of dental colleagues who introduced us to John A.D. Curran and Anne Cunningham. And they were coming home from England, and they came in to run the practice with me, and then John, 2 years later, bought the practice from my mother. He then asked me would I stay, so I did that, and we worked together for, I don't want to say how many years, but we worked together for a long time, and we have remained friends to this day. My son Adrian arrived in the middle of all of this as well, and I took 6 years out to look after him. Coming up to the end of that 6 years, I thought, if I don't go back in some form, I might as well throw my hat at it. So I was chatting with Johnny, and Johnny advised me that this new agency had set up, Irish Dental Jobs, and he said to me that this might work for me. So I remember the first day I rang Marguerite, and we had a great old conversation on the phone, and I haven't looked back since.
Like that's a great story, like Clare.
Yeah.
Like I know you hail from, you know, I know your father ran a practice and everything
Yeah.
like that, but it's lovely to hear that. And, you know, like I want a big shout out to Dr. John Ada Curran, like, because, you know, like Clare, not only, and I mean everything that I say about everyone, I really mean, not only are you like a superstar dental nurse, but you know, you're a true lady, and like I really, really value all the work that you do for me and standing by me and being so loyal and everything like that, you know. So
Thank you, Margaret. But I think it works both ways, because you have allowed me to do what I do, in the sense that you have given me opportunities to work in the various different fields of dentistry, whereas that opportunity may not have arisen if I was assigned to one practice. You know, I know there's a lot of multidisciplinary practices out there, but still you never know where a job is going to lead you to. Being able to work as an agency nurse, you work with, in general practice, you work in specialist practice. And the specialist practice could be endo, it could be oral surgery, it could be orthodontics. And as a result of that, you are able to get a huge amount of experience in all the different fields of dentistry. And that is what I would thank you for, because you have given me the opportunity of being able to do that.
like you said, it absolutely works on both sides, you know, because to be a member of our dedicated temp team, I talk to dental nurses all day, every day, and you would expect that everybody should be to the standard, you know, for a dedicated temp. But you're looking for, there's a lot of skill sets that you require. And, you know, to be able to work with somebody that is 100% reliable, who can go into an environment and adapt to every environment with either little or no experience. Like when you first came to me, like your biggest thing was you had no dental software experience and you were very, very nervous. And you actually only told me recently that you were very sick, you know, like you were really, you know, the first few assignments you went out to, you were so nervous.
The first year.
Like, which I never knew, you know, but your biggest thing was software. And like, you know, I'm always promoting the right attitude, you know, or the right personality over experience. And I was saying to you all along, I said, you've got absolutely nothing to worry about. You know, you've plenty of experience. I'll be very upfront with my clients, you know, so that they're aware of it. And now I think your experience in absolutely, like,
there's so many different software programs.
And then a lot of temporary nurses who do come to work with me, a lot of times they don't have any specialist experience at all. Like, and we've had 4 nurses now who will only work with the specialists. And when they started, they'd no experience whatsoever, you know. So, and the other thing, you know, which I think is great for a temp, and it's something that I would love to have in my life, because I've had no life since I've set up this business. Is like you've always said to me, you know, I've given you the work and life balance, because you choose when you work and when not to work. But the good thing is that I always know when you're available. You're available. You've always been available 3 days a week. But you're not available for school holidays. But that's about to change, because our babies aren't babies
they're
anymore.
grown up now at this stage. Yes, you know, so it was a little shock to the system working during the summer this year. This was my first year, you know, in a long time working through the summer. But it does offer a great work-life balance. And it is something that, just speaking from a personal experience, it is something that works for my family. You know, also what temping I would view as nearly like a continuing education because you're working in different fields with different specialists, and you are learning on the job as well.
Yeah.
And you learn to become very adaptable very quickly, and you have to kind of think on your feet.
You have to be adaptable, and that's the thing. And like that is, I'd imagine for any dental nurse who goes out temping first, it's daunting, to be able to adapt. I know you've gone out to some clinics before, and you might not get you might not get a hello, and then you're left to your own devices to find your way around and everything like that. Is there any kind of advice you'd have out there for anyone who might be looking to temp, or if someone was at the start of their career, or would you be advising, someone like to get the experience first and then?
Well, what I would say about it is, as I mentioned earlier, it does give you the opportunity to experience the different fields of dentistry, whether it's general or whether it is one of the areas of specialists. I would think, and I do think, that actually it would be a good idea for any nurse, particularly those just coming out of training, that they would experience, each of the different fields. And as I said, learning on the job, learning to become more adaptable, also learning to be able to deal with the different characters that
absolutely,
that you will meet along the way.
Yeah.
But the
downside to temping is, so like I would have a lot more temporary nurses available, only you can't, no matter how busy you are, you can't guarantee it.
No, you can't.
And that's the downside. I would have a much bigger team, if I could.
Well, that's why I made reference there that it works for me and my family. It mightn't work for everybody, but it does give you plenty of opportunities to learn. And it's a continuing education. Which I think is really important.
Fab. And I must be a really good employer, Claire, because we had a recent podcast about retaining staff and making people feel appreciated and everything like that. And I don't think anyone else has an employee like mine as Claire Lynch, because, she has given me 5 years notice. Like, where would you get that, But I'm going to work for 5 years, because if you go, I don't know how I would work if you're not around. I'd actually, I would die. I'd actually die, if you came to me now and tell me you were leaving. Actually, while we're talking about that, I just want to send a message out there to my clients who say to me on a very regular basis that they're going to get Claire Lynch off me. My response to that is, over my dead body. What Claire Lynch wants, Claire Lynch gets. And that's all I can say. So here's to another 5 years.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marguerite.
So Brianna, how do we follow that?
I know, it's a big shoes to fill, I think.
So all the way from Australia.
Yes, all the way from Australia, from Melbourne, Australia, just outside Melbourne. So I'm kind of in a different position than Claire, being at the basically the start of my career, really.
Yeah.
And I think, I was working in Melbourne for about 4 years. I did a little bit of work up in Sydney, right on the coast on Jarvis Bay, which is this gorgeous beach in New South Wales. But then I got a little thought in my head, Marguerite, that maybe it was time to see the rest of the world and come over to Ireland. Yeah.
And you contacted me, like I've worked with a lot of Australians, both in legal and dental, and you contacted me about 6-7 months before you were coming over. And you're just putting the feelers out, and then we stayed in touch. And then 7 months later, you're on the phone, on your way. And how long did it take after the 7 months? Was 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, it was really 3 or 4 months. I guess there was a waiting period before I was really ready to go. But the reason why I contacted you in the first place was that I was thinking, I didn't know from the start whether I could even do dental nursing in Ireland.
Yeah.
And so I did a bit of a Google search, kind of Australian nurses, Ireland, and then yours popped up and you had a little profile
of an Australian nurse that had worked in Ireland, and that really got the ball rolling. I didn't know whether I was going to get my visa, my authorization, and then that really sparked it.
The majority of Australian nurses who would contact me, they like, for some reason, I don't know why, it's like a year beforehand. Just putting the feelers out, and every single person that I've worked with from Australia, they're on the plane and I have a job for them to go to. And you actually wanted to go to Galway, and at the time one of our clients was looking for full time.
Okay.
But if you're coming over here and you're on a working holiday visa, now you can work for 6 months at a time, or you can temp. You don't really want to be in a full-time job. One of our very good clients in Galway, who are a client who I believe have mastered the art in retaining staff. They took all that on board, and in fairness, they offered you a 3-day week for the 6 months.
Really, if I had have thought what was my ideal position, it would have been exactly what you arranged for me, which was really just brilliant. It allowed me to, I'd be saying to the staff, I went off to Sligo, I've been down to Cork, and they said, where have you been this weekend? And I was only allowed to do that because I had that flexibility. Exactly.
Yeah. And Claire asked you where you're on, working in Australia versus working in Ireland, like there are any differences, or would there be one main difference?
Yeah, I would say that Australia is probably all the Irish that are in Australia right now would testify that Australia is quite corporate, but it probably also does have a very relaxed manner in the sense of that it is easy to work. It's got a good work-life balance, I think people would say. And so maybe we're starting to get glimpses of that here as well, starting to get a bit more of a work-life balance where people are saying that, they probably don't want to be working 24/7, which that's what I've experienced. Obviously, someone's going to have a different perspective than me because I'm just here to travel, really, which is from a different perspective.
And regards, the process, because it had been it was a couple of years since I have worked with an Australian nurse, and for some reason I forgot. I thought you had to have a European passport. You've actually an Australian passport, which is great. So, we're always trying to attract more Australians, to come to Ireland. So, you might tell us a bit about that process.
Yeah, so the process I'm on is called a working holiday authorisation. And basically what it allows is young Australians, 18 to 30, I believe, to come to Australia for a year. And when we're Australian, we're only allowed to work for one employer for 6 months at a time. Yeah. Which for me is perfect because I didn't want to be held down to one spot. I knew I wanted to go to Galway first, but then
so it's the same working holiday visa if you're going from Australia.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, but you don't need the European passport if you have an Australian passport.
No, I'm 100% Australian, so I'm really just coming over on that authorization. Don't need any other. And really the process was quite simple. Once that I had stated on my visa form that I'd contacted someone that was offering a job to me, that was really, I think I got my visa back in 4 days or something. It was very simple process.
And now you've finished your 6-month contract in Galway and you're on your way to Cork.
Yes, that's the one.
So for all our Cork listeners, if you are looking for a dental nurse, we have a superstar available for you.
If you have an Australian on the team, I'm looking for Cork.
Looking for a Cork man as well, maybe. You might as well put it out there while you can.
Yeah, that's the sub note.
Yeah, exactly. Brianna, so would you have any questions to ask the head nurse of our dedicated Temp team?
Yeah, I think what I'd ask is, how'd you get over that first day nerves of going into a new clinic and you never know what you're going to get? Because when I first came here, obviously it was a new culture, a new country. Yes. What's your tip for a new nurse like myself?
Well, I suppose for the first year, I didn't actually get over the nerves. There was a constant nervousness there. But then I got into a routine for myself of, you go forward, you're going into a practice you've never been before, you learn to ask questions. and, you know, in terms of how certain procedures and what way the particular individual you're working with likes it done. You know, there's one thing I have always said about dentists, and I would say it to the dentists I have worked with, that particularly the Irish dentists, that you wouldn't think that they all came out of 2 dental hospitals in Ireland, you know, because they all have their own ways and of operating their practices. But temping, I enjoy it. It challenges me, and I think that is always something that everybody should do in their life. As I said earlier, somebody had said to me a long time ago, you know, the importance of being able to challenge yourself. And this has certainly been a challenge for me, but it has been very rewarding for me. And I would actually find it hard now to go back to just working in a particular practice.
And I'd imagine it keeps you interested.
Very.
You know,
very interested.
So, you know,
very interested.
And like, you know, and I say this, you could be working in a dental practice for 2 years, but working as a temporary nurse for 2 years, I think you'd have a lot more to offer.
You have absolutely a lot more to offer. As I said earlier, it's, to me, it is like a continuing education, you know, because you are learning all the time. You become very, very adaptable, and you meet, you know, so many different characters, and, you know, no one day is the same as the next day, you know, and that is what I enjoy.
Thank you very much for that, Claire. That is great advice, and I look forward to the next 5 years together.
You, Marguerite.
And Brianna, all the way from Australia, and wishing you the very best of luck in Ireland for the next 6 months, and the best of luck in finding a job and finding a man.
Thanks, Margaret. You'll be on the recruitment path, I think, for that one.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Dental Chair. If anything resonated with you, if you have any queries on your job search, recruitment needs, you can contact me directly at marguerite@irishdentaljobs.ie, or you can call 01 840 90 70. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please like and share. Before we wrap up, I would like to leave our listeners with one final thought. Recruitment is not just about filling a position, it's about building relationships and ensuring long-term success for the candidate and for your practice. As I always say, people matter. Treat every candidate, colleague, client with empathy, respect and genuine interest. It's these connections that truly make a difference. This is Marguerite Morgan from Irish Dental Jobs. Until the next time, slán agus beannacht.